6:02, slightly after what was promised. Start this recording here for the teams as well, and the transcription. Sweet. Open at 6:02 p.m, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land for which we meet today. The Curtin Student Guild pays our respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander members of our community by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land for which we meet today. The Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and on our Kalgoorlie campus, the Wongatha people of the North Eastern Goldfields. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this university, city and this region. We'll move straight on to item 2, which is attendance. Members present, we have Dylan, Noor, Ben, Razan, Mitch, Callum, myself, Hamida, Bridget, Emily online, David, Ebony, Coben, Max, others present. We have Vernon, Ella and Sagan. Yes, sweet. And then apologies as well. We have Jackie and Shira. There's nobody deemed absent. Sweet. Let's move on to item 3. Item 3 is the disclosure of any potential or perceived conflicts of interest. Were there any conflicts of interest to note with the contents of today's agenda? Mitch Craig?
I have a conflict with item 6.4, appointment of Mitchell Craig as PSC president for obvious reasons.
I don't think an explanation is needed if you've done the legwork to read the agenda. Dylan as well.
I've got a conflict with item 6.2, NUS affiliation, as I am the president of the mighty West Australian state branch of the National Union of Students.
Thank you, Dylan. The question is to therefore be put as to allow these members to remain present for the discussion of these items and whether we should consider them to vote as well. I'll just note that in the case of Mitch Craig, it probably should not be allowed for Mitch to continue to vote or to vote for himself. So I'll put that to members for discussion if someone wants to raise that motion. Callum? Move the motion that the members remain present in the chamber for debate, excluding Mitch from voting. Perfect. The motion is therefore for vote. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. If there's no further potential or perceived conflicts of interest, we'll move to item 4. Item 4 is the minutes from the previous meeting and circular resolutions. Item 4.1 is the previous meeting minutes. The motion is that the Guild Council approves the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 21st of November and the 2nd of December as true and accurate recordings of proceedings at that meeting. That's moved by Noor. Can I get a seconder? Ben, all those in favour of moving that? All those against? That motion is carried. Item 4.2 is the circular resolution. 4.2.1 is the circular resolution, the first of this Guild Council. The Finance and Risk members, that is moved by Dylan Storer and seconded by Noor. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. It was already carried, but that's fine. We'll move on to item 5, which is reports. 5.1 is the President's report. Dylan, your report was submitted, as were your key performance indicators. Did you have anything to add?
Oh, indeed I do. Thank you very much, Ryan, and welcome to the 56th Guild Council of the mighty Curtin Student Guild. The beginning of this term has been fast-paced and driven by a very motivated team of reps that are eager to get the job done. 2025 presents the Guild with many challenges and opportunities. We have a state and federal election, a plethora of events for students, thousands of sausages to sizzle, hundreds of clubs to support, over 100 clubs to support. I don't think we've quite got hundreds, and 60,000 students to advocate on behalf of and fight for every day. The Curtin Student Guild will continue to be the leading full-service student union in the country. The Guild will fight for the rights of student renters on and off campus. We'll advocate for the banning of outdated unit content and for better assessment feedback, and we'll back in all student rights to self self-determination on and off campus and push back against the regressive far-right agenda that Peter Dutton and Libby Madam and the Liberal Party want to push in this country and in this state. In 2025, the Guild will open the long-awaited Clubs Hub and a new student kitchen, marking the beginning of a broad revitalisation of the Guild precinct into the hub of student life on campus. We'll also embark upon making the big strategic decisions that will turn our loss-making commercial portfolio around, whilst ensuring that food and drink on campus is cheap for students. The Guild will consistently engage with the university and government, advocate fiercely inside and outside of the halls of power. Our values will never waver and will be the independent and strong Guild that the students of this university deserve. First, I want to note a few things, matters of representation, and then I wanted to just note a few things regarding Guild governance and strategy. First of all is something I spoke about at length at Representation Board, but I just want to reiterate here that the feedback we're getting from students on the reintroduction of the second tuition-free week from 2026 is incredible, and it is a incredible backing. We ought to celebrate as a triumph of the professional, staunch, diligent and driven theory of change that this Guild pursues. Many students are talking about how this is one of the most impactful things that the Guild has achieved throughout their university life in relation directly to their academic performance. It's something that's very welcome, and I've reiterated that at Academic Board. We've been running a comprehensive Enrol to Vote campaign across our digital platforms in the lead up to the close of rolls for the WA state election. That will continue in the lead up to polling day itself because of the introduction of Enrol on the day, which is now in place here in Western Australia as well. So we'll be encouraging students to still go and enrol to vote and just go and cast an informed vote as well. The Vice-Chancellor has initiated a review of the student charter. We agitated for increased Guild representation on that matter. That has happened. I'll be meeting with a subgroup of a working group tomorrow as it slowly makes its way through the hyper-efficient processes of Curtin University. I will inform Reps Board, but also Guild Council. Yeah, close it just so they don't hear what we're saying about them. If there's any negative proposals put through in that process, but I think the framing of what the Guild is going to be pursuing is a reframe of the student charter into something that is about student rights and student responsibilities, as opposed to it being a document that is punitive in nature towards students. The Guild's launched a petition demanding urgent action on housing. We're also engaging with students in student housing. We had a barbecue there yesterday with about 60 students, which is really good engagement. We've got a lot of feedback and information, and we'll be putting that forward into a report and list of actions that we're going to be pursuing moving forward. I'm really proud of the engagement that the Curtin Student Guild had on the Sovereignty Day rally. We had a good showing at the sign painting event. We also were present there providing much needed shade, cool water and sunscreen to those in attendance. And we also assisted other people on tasks such as distributing T-shirts alongside rally organisers. I do think it's important that student unions are active in broader communities and that we uphold the fundamental value of self-determination in our work as well there. I'll touch on matters relating to the inquiry into university governance and the findings from the report into anti-Semitism on university campuses. I'll flow back through to that shortly, but I just wanted to provide a few brief updates on some matters of commercial relevance to the Guild. Firstly, a big congratulations is in order for Jackie, who's unfortunately not able to be with us here tonight, and the entire Guild staff for O-Day. It was a really great showing and a really great event. And I was sort of sitting by and in the dunk tank all day, so I know that Jackie was doing far more work than I was in and around that day. So it's really great work for her and the events team. And it was brilliant to meet so many new students and present the diverse, welcoming and vibrant campus that the Guild works hard to achieve. A massive thanks is in order to George and Sladen IT and Tanya and the TAV team on the successful rollout of the QR codes in the tavern. We beat UWA to it, so I think it's an incredible achievement for the mighty Curtin Student Guild, and it's a huge improvement and a sign of things to come in the commercial space, particularly particularly noting that you're able to log in on the app to access your Guild discount. So that's something that's really exciting there. We have lowered the price of drinks at the library cafes and at all of the Guild cafes. We've pegged that to the price in Gmart, which is much cheaper. This means, for example, a large can of Red Bull in the library cafe is now 40% cheaper than it was at the start of the year. So that's going to be happening very soon. We're going to be making sure that we're backing that up with better labelling of the prices in the cafes. So I want to thank Vernon and Tanya for their work on that one. On the period product dispenser program, we've worked through that. We've got an agreement with the university. They're going to fund half of the period products going into that dispenser, and we've started the rollout of those dispensers across campus. So a great bit of work there from Jackie, Razan, and also Bridget and Morgan, our Women and Queer Officer. Obviously, Bridget's a Guild counsellor as well on getting that out. So we rolled the first few extra ones out yesterday. We'll be rolling more out next week. There's a couple of little issues on the precise placement of some, I think 2 extra dispensers, which we're just working through with the properties team, which I think is really good. I've established a committee to advise me on matters relating to the commercial portfolio with the aim to secure its future in the Curtin community. And I welcome any suggestions from representatives or students regarding these matters. And I am really looking forward to seeing what positive change we're able to push through in that. And I want to thank Vernon, our new Managing Director, for really hitting the ground running on that commercial strategy work. I think there's going to be a lot of really good things coming out of it in the future that's going to make sure that students are getting food that's good, that's affordable, but that it's also contributing to the important work that the Guild does moving forward. On the matters of the inquiry into university governance, we welcome that. We're putting in a submission into the Senate inquiry there. I'll circulate that around once that's been drafted and we send it in. It's still in the drafting process. It's due on Monday, so I'll send that out to Guild councillors either when that goes out or as part of the I'll definitely attach in the next batch of papers for the next Guild Council meeting. And then on the matter of the inquiry into anti-Semitism on university campuses, I just want to start by emphasising that the Guild strongly opposes anti-Semitism, but we are concerned regarding a number of recommendations contained within the report of the Parliamentary Joint Committee into Human Rights, and we view several recommendations from that as posing a significant risk to academic freedom and the ability to engage in discourse on campus. We note with a lot of concern the news from Universities Australia and that Curtin University endorsed a statement or a definition of anti-Semitism at the Universities Australia level. We've been urgently seeking confirmation from the Vice-Chancellor on this matter. The Guild plans on putting out a statement on this over the coming day or two. I met with the Vice-Chancellor today. I sent an email to the Vice-Chancellor outlining the Guild's strong opposition to the adoption of this definition on campus. We view this as stifling criticism of Israel and stifling criticism of the political ideology of Zionism, and that the consequences of such are quite dangerous to academic freedom on campus. This is obviously part of a larger national push to put this in place. The IHRA definition is in place and has been adopted at various levels of government already. Obviously, the prospect of a Liberal national government in place, they've indicated that they will seek to legislate that or put that in place through regulation. I think it's a dangerous time at the moment. I think it's really important that the university and the Guild be backing up the rights of students to engage in criticism of Israel and in criticism of the political ideology of Zionism, and for that not to be conflated with anti-Semitism. Any statement the Guild puts out on this matter will be in line with that, and that has been well communicated to the university, and it is already well communicated to the university, as is the case and outlined in the memorandum of understanding that came out of the encampment as well. We are getting final confirmation from the university on the exact path forward that they're planning on taking. And we plan on communicating that to students. But I really have emphasised to the Vice-Chancellor that if this is something that Curtin is going to do or isn't going to do, it needs to be communicated in a clear manner to students very, very quickly, and staff as well, in a manner that is very quick. But we do view this adoption of this definition at a national level as quite concerning. Sorry for the long yap with that report. There's quite a bit to cover from the last 3 months. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dylan, for that energetic and exuberant report. As you mentioned, quite long. But I'll open it up now to members. Were there any questions or comments relating to Dylan's report? Ebony.
Yeah, I just had one relating to the housing campaign that you were running. I understand at the moment we're not having these heat waves that we were having probably about a month ago. So I was concerned that we possibly don't have the same sort of sympathy from students as you would have back then. So I just wanted to know what the plan is heading forward if there isn't that immediate support from students, and what the plan is. Yeah, thank you.
Dylan.
Yeah, so we will be looking at a broader campaign. So we've already started the conversations with students and with our student assist team, and the expectation that I've communicated and given plenty of warning to the university on at various levels is that we will be putting together a report that outlines some of these issues that are broader than just air conditioning in particularly the older student accommodation, not not just older student accommodation. Some of these relate to maintenance issues not being addressed, cleanliness not being addressed, issues around the rates of rent, issues around security as well. There's just some issues around discrimination, unfortunately, as well being experienced by some students that live in accommodation. I flagged all this in advance with the university. We'll be putting together a report and we're going to have a list of recommendations that I think as a basis for us to push on and fight for moving forward, and for us to be able to keep building on it as we go, and as we win things, we keep pushing for more. Obviously, student renters aren't included under the Residential Tenancies Act, but that doesn't mean that the rights afforded to students, the rights afforded to renters in the Residential Tenancy Act can't be afforded to students at Curtin University. That's the bare minimum really here. You've got situations where there are RAs or Unilodge staff sort of just barging into rooms any hour of the day without any notice. These are things that need to stop. Like, a home, a place to live is an important basis for well-being of students moving forward. And I really think that the way that Unilodge treats students as part of its business model is quite appalling, to be honest.
Thanks, Dylan. Ben.
I was just going to add one thing to this because it's already been brought up. The campaign is currently sitting at, I believe, 749 people. Talking yesterday, both in the evening and during the day, a lot of students still are very sympathetic to the issue, but as seen through the data, when there's no heat waves, it tends to be signatures coming a lot slower. So we're going to have to find a way to get that up higher so we can go with this report with more power behind us, essentially.
Thanks, Ben. There's no further member questions. Ella?
I just had a question about this thing about the student charter being reviewed. You mentioned that some of the review might outline students' rights and responsibilities and make it less punitive. I was wondering if you could expand on that and just expand on why the Vice-Chancellor has initiated a review of the student charter. I guess I'm just thinking in the context of we have seen further repression of students, RA activism, RA political speech, and I think sometimes the student charter is weaponized against students to repress their views. So yeah, like kind of why the VC is doing this review, but also the thing you said about it being less punitive, like could you expand on that?
Dylan?
Yeah, I think the matter of it being less punitive is something that the Guild is seeking to pursue, particularly if it starts to go into more areas. I think the responsibility of students really and the code of conduct, essentially, for lack of a better term, that students need to adhere to at Curtin University exists in statute. It exists under existing policy. I'm not sure that needs to be included in a student charter necessarily. The way the student charter is currently written, it sets out things that the university undertakes to do, and then it sets out things that students will undertake to do. And instead of things being that the university or the student undertakes to do, we really want it to be student focused. We will want it to be, these are student rights at Curtin University, and these are student responsibilities at Curtin University, things like treating staff with respect and all that kind of stuff. What I've heard from the Vice-Chancellor is not that this is related to repression, but of course, of course the Vice-Chancellor is not going to go and say that we want to amend the thing to repress students, so she's not going to say that. But the reason the university is citing for the review is, one, it's quite old. It's been around for over a decade now. It's time for a review. Two is around the communication of this to students, so how we can best make sure that students are aware of their rights and responsibilities, or what the university undertakes to do and what students should undertake to do for the university is best communicated to them. But also there was some issues regarding student behaviour in relation to predominantly students on placements, I think, is what was cited to me. So there was some issues around students on placements. Now, I just don't think that the Student Charter is necessarily going to be the best way to address student behaviour on placements, but the review's in front of us. We're going to engage in it. Ultimately, that will come up and to at least academic board, so the Guild will be involved in all of the processes of that. As I say, it's hard to tell. I've got another meeting tomorrow. It's hard to tell about what direction the university is going to take it through. If it does take a negative turn, I'll certainly report back to here. But the position of the Guild is the Student Charter shouldn't be a disciplinary document. It should be just a broad charter that outlines what students should expect from the university and what the university should expect from students, in a way that's much simpler than students reading through the statute and the codes of conduct and things like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Dylan. Any further questions for Dylan on either his report or the KPI? KPI is attached. If not, we'll move straight on to item 5.2, which is the Vice President Education's report. Ben, your report was submitted, as were your KPIs. Did you have anything to add?
I have nothing additional to add. Happy to take it straight. Happy to take questions.
Perfect. That's tabled. Any questions or discussion relating to Ben's report or KPIs? If not, we'll move straight on. Item 5.3 is the Vice President Activities Report and KPIs. I'll just note the member is not present. Conventional wisdom and precedent says that we may save this one for the next Guild Council, provided everyone's happy to do so. At the next Guild Council, Jackie can discuss the report and KPIs from there. So we'll skip that one for now. And item 5.4 is the Vice President Sustainability and Welfare. Razan, your report was submitted, as were your KPIs. Did you have anything to add?
I'll take the majority of my report as read, but I wanted to comment on an element in my report. I wanted to strongly commend the Women's Officer, Bridget, for her swift response in response to an incident on the 20th of February. I'd like to invite Bridget to speak on it before I comment further.
Bridget, if you wish.
Thank you, Razan. Yeah, on one of my most recent posts on the women's Instagram, someone commented that they were fighting demons and wanted to shoot up a school, preferably Curtin. With that, in a 3-hour ordeal, which took me to like almost midnight, I reported it, and the next day, the guy was arrested. I was notified by the police that the guy got arrested and let go. He's very sorry. He didn't mean it. He was joking. So, but yeah, I was quite impressed by how quickly the police handled it. Yeah.
Thanks, Bridget. Razan?
Thank you, Bridget. I think as Sustainability and Welfare Officer, but as a woman, it is really important that individuals understand the implications of harassment. Just because it's online, it doesn't mean it's okay. The Pew Research Centre reports that only 16% of gender-based violence incidents are actually reported. And with the responsibility of leading by example, I hope that such examples encourage women, especially, to speak up. So well done, Bridget.
Thanks, Razan.
I'm happy to take any comments on my KPIs or report.
Thanks, Razan. Speaking of which, were there any comments or questions on Razan's report or KPIs? If not, we'll move on to item 5.5. Item 5.5 is the Secretary's report. Nor both your report and your KPIs were submitted. Did you have anything to add?
What Dylan said. And no, I'll take it as read.
Thank you, Nor. It's good to have a Secretary's report that's given in a tone of voice that's not so monotone and also quite short for once. So I welcome this and hope that it continues throughout the year. Were there any questions on Nor's report or KPIs? If not, we'll move on. Item 5.6 is the Managing Director's report. Vernon, your report was submitted, as was the Managing Director's business plan. Did you have anything to add?
As this is my first report, I'll take it largely as read and welcome any questions from the council or the board. But I would just mention for new council members and myself too, learning how these have been constructed. These are largely put together and contributed by the portfolio managers. So whilst I'll have at this stage a surface understanding of those, I'll take any questions on notice that I need to and attempt to answer in due course. But again, happy to take the report as read and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Vernon. Were there any questions for Vernon? David, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I just had a question for the business plan under the section that says our food and beverage offerings will be diverse and offer value for money. Under the measure of success, it references the commercial strategy, and it seems to have a hyperlink there that we're not obviously able to access. I just wonder if you could elaborate more on the measure of success, where it says market positioning actions and commercial strategy on track. Usually I'm looking for like a specific metric or a number that we could look at. I just don't see that there.
I will have to take that one on notice and look into it. Again, largely this is an inherited document from David, so a lot of these were prepared prior to his departure and again contributed to the by the portfolio managers that are responsible. But I'll gain an understanding, unless someone in the room has an understanding on how these metrics were devised, and return a response in due course.
I'll just quickly jump in here. David, on the off chance that you do watch this, and I doubt that you will, enjoy retirement. This is not a reflection on you, David. Anybody have any understanding of the metrics by which our commercial performance is marked against? Beyond, obviously, profit loss? No? It's maybe someone who sat on finance and risk last year. No? Okay, no worries. We'll take that question as tabled. We'll get back to you, David. Any further questions for Vernon? We'll go Max and then Mitch.
Yeah, in here under clubs and societies, it's mentioned that currently the Guild is working towards soft launch of phase 1 for the new Clubs Hub by week 1. I'd like to know if that is still on track, or is that going to be delayed?
Yeah, so Clubs Hub phase 1 has been released now, so it's been handed over to the Guild. Beck and her team are administrating the access to that. Beck will be working with the President, as I understand it, to determine a launch, whether that is once all phases have been released or phase by phase. But my understanding is that the meeting room and the storeroom, which is phase 1, is open and available now, and that some clubs have been allocated that on, not on request, on request of a meeting space.
Thank you, Vernon. We'll go to Mitch.
I've got a couple.
Go for it.
All right.
You always do.
I'll start off. It's not actually, I don't think you've got them January monthly sales in here, just the year to date for last year. But I wanted to ask you about the GC Library sales. I had a look and they're about half of what they were in January of 2024. Do you know if there's a reason for that?
Look, I can't say for sure. My understanding is it'll be related to the opening times. I know they delayed the opening time for the library based on their anticipated demand and the cost to open. but I can get back to you on, I'll firstly confirm that they are half of what they were the previous year. I haven't seen that data yet, as the draft January financials have only been completed this week. But trust you've got a good source to that information, and then get back to you on the reason why. But I suspect it's due to opening times.
Thanks, Vernon. Mitch, again.
All right. My next one is for the 2024 financial performance. It's got a $79,000 overspend in events. I was wondering if that includes the around $25,000 that came from the representation budget to pay for block party delivery as well.
I couldn't specifically answer that. I'll take that on notice.
All right. The last one might be a bit more.
You said
Sorry, I
a
got
couple refers to two, a few refers to three, Mitch, but if normally
the last one might be more a question for Dylan, but it's got to do with the MD business plan. The first item, the measure of success is that Grok is published online regularly and has an on-campus focus. Is there a Grok right now, and what is being done to address that?
I mean, Vernon, if you wanted to.
I'll defer to the president on.
Okay, I see. Grok is, for those people that aren't aware, an award-winning student publication that has not been published for a little while now. I am working with Marianne, which is the manager for student engagement, and who would oversee Grok on getting Grok up this year to be published and to be in that area. I've also had some preliminary conversations with the Deputy Vice Chancellor Global on ensuring that there might be some space in Grok for international perspectives from global campuses to be reflected here at Curtin as well. So yeah, it's one of those things that I've got to keep reminding myself to stay engaged with, because it can fall to the bottom of the list, but I think that's probably why Grok is in the situation it is in this year. But what I would envisage Grok to look like is something that is printed, something that is very well defined, and something that you are then able to hand over to an editor and say, these are how many pages you've got. This is what we like. We want there to be a bit of journalism, a bit of creative writing, a bit of whatever we decide, and then go and do it. And this is your deadline, and we'll get it printed and we'll distribute it around the campus. So I think that that's where we are heading with that at the moment. But student media is in a tricky spot around the country, as is commercial portfolios of guilds. So it's certainly not something that we're uniquely experiencing here. But yeah, I think it's quite important to have a space that students can express themselves and engage in a level of discourse and debate and conversation on campus.
Thanks, Dylan. No further questions. Mitch, are there any further questions for Vernon? If not, I will just note for new members that whenever Mitch asks a question of the managing director, it's quite a good opportunity. It's a bit like a Wimbledon final. It's a fun back and forth, and you're always guaranteed to be entertained. If not, we'll move to the motion. The motion is that the Guild Council approves the reports. That's moved by Noor. Can I get a seconder, please? We'll go with Ben. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. We'll move to item 6, which is, of course, we have to note. Yeah, there probably should be. Yeah, sure. There's nothing in there, but that's okay. Let's do it on the fly. The second motion is that the Guild Council approves the KPIs as submitted to the Guild Council. That's moved by Noor and seconded by Max. All those in favour? All those against? And that motion is carried as well. We'll move to item 6, business on notice. Item 6.1 is the safety report. The motion is that the Guild Council notes the safety report. That's moved by Noor. Can I get a seconder? Ben, Noor, as mover, did you have anything to add or note on the safety report? Sure.
Just a question to Vernon. What are we doing to mitigate the heat stress that our employees are facing in some of the guild outlets? I saw one was blood nose and another was I think it was just that one, but it was about 42 degrees. Yeah, it was the heat wave. But I'm wondering if there's been anything kind of minor other than that.
Yeah, I guess what I'm aware of is, anyway, what we generally do to try to mitigate impacts of any weather, and the heat in this case, is to work with the university that provide the infrastructure that counter that. So the air conditioning, I believe, it works to the functions well during regular and slightly warmer days, but like any infrastructure, it struggles under extreme heat. There is an issue with air conditioning generally at the university, I understand, being dealt with. We put in fans in outlets where there has been an expressed discomfort by staff, and we also educate and remind staff to be aware of their own body and how they're feeling, to take time to drink water, to let their manager know. So we try to manage and monitor it. Another venue was the tavern, where we put in manual fans to support them.
Thanks, Vernon. I'll pass to Ben. Ben, did you have anything to raise on the safety report?
Yes, just quickly speaking on the new items of concern for GC and the commercial kitchen. Has that been resolved as it was looked for before commencing the semester? Just above ongoing incidents and hazards to know.
And just the microphone as well, Vernon.
Sorry. So the
level of tardiness and clutter.
Oh yes, they've been addressed. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll open up to members now. Is there anything to note, any discussion relating to the safety report from members? Here we go. Mitch Craig.
I just wanted to ask about, there's only 90% of the January inspections were completed, as to why that was.
Yeah, I believe that the Guild Library Cafe was one of those that was not completed. There's a couple of reasons, I believe, for that, and they haven't had a team leader in place. That has just been employed now. So I suspect staffing and staff with the ability to carry out that was an issue for them in January. But as noted by Nika in a separate communication to me, there was a problem with the app down there. And the other location was actually our administration building. I can't advise why specifically that wasn't done, but I'm happy to take that on notice with Nika and get back to this board.
Thanks, Vernon. Any further questions relating to the safety report? If not, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour of passing the motion as it stands? All those against? That motion is carried. Item 6.2 is the NUS affiliation. The motion is that the Guild Council approves the 2025 National Union of Students Key Performance Indicators and initial affiliation fee of $40,000 as recommended by the Representation Board. That's moved by Dylan and seconded by Ben. Dylan, as mover, did you want to comment on the affiliation?
Yeah, I'll just comment briefly. The Curtin Student Guild is obviously a big supporter of the National Union of Students, and we believe that the National Union of Students ought to be the strong, professional and staunch representative body that students at this campus, and I believe students around the country, deserve. We make a significant contribution to the NUS, and we have a vested interest as members of the Guild Council as a responsible body that determines how where we spend our money, that we get satisfactory results for Curtin students out of that investment, and that the National Union of Students functions effectively and transparently. We believe that KPIs are important in ensuring that all students reap the benefit of the Guild's NUS accreditation. Now, last year, this motion came to the February Guild Council meeting. We decided, well, I wasn't there at the time, but it was decided at the time that an initial affiliation fee of $50,000, along with the same KPIs that are here, I haven't added any other, we haven't added any other KPIs, be approved. This is approving an initial affiliation fee of $40,000 in this instance, which is $10,000 lower than last year. When I was proposing how to put this forward to Representation Board, and that was supported by Representation Board, is that we go lower this year because ultimately last year a number of KPIs were not met by the National Union of Students, and that demonstrates poor governance practices in the National Union of Students that ought to be addressed. So we've reduced we ended up paying somewhere around $32,000, I believe. I'm looking to Mitch, $38,000 last year after we deducted our KPIs from that $50,000 amount. So what we've proposed here and what's been endorsed by Representation Board is an increase in nearly all of the penalties that will be affected by the NUS. They're all listed here. I hope that everyone on Guild Council would agree that all of these are very basic standards that we ought to be upholding. Many of these were not met by the NUS last year, so we're increasing the penalty in response to that to encourage the NUS to do what they are obligated to do on behalf of the students that we represent. Basically, the carrot is $40,000 and the stick is deducting that money from the NUS. Some of these things here are exit indicators. That's like holding a national conference, making sure that there's an independent annual audit of finances. If those aren't met, the Curtin Student Guild won't pay any affiliation amount to the NUS. But other instances where we've got KPIs here is such that the NUS reasonably accommodate the accessibility needs of attendees to conferences that the NUS holds. It's been a significant issue at many conferences in the past. That the paid full-time NUS office bearers provide a reasonable level of support to member organisation office bearers, that on balance the NUS makes substantial progress towards the achievement of its stated policy aims, that the website be kept up to date with the most recent policy documents, minutes and NUS office bearer details, and also that the NUS establish a policy platform that provides its member organisations with a clear statement on the NUS's beliefs, values and programs. This is what we're proposing the NUS does. If they're not met, we will make the deductions from the $40,000 and then that will go back through the same process that this has. It'll go through Representation Board with the review of those KPIs. I'll make a recommendation based on that. That'll be endorsed by Representation Board and then that will come up to Guild Council again when it comes up in about the middle of the year when it comes to paying our affiliation amount. Yeah, that's basically me at the moment. I think the NUS is very important, but it needs to be better. It needs to be run better. It needs to make up for its basic standards. And this is basically the only lever that we have to pull to be able to influence the NUS to do that.
Thanks, Dylan. Comprehensive as always. Ben, as seconder, did you have anything to add on this motion?
Not really. Dylan's pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Comprehensive, like I said. Any questions from members present relating to the motion? We'll go David.
Based on my personal research, there are 20 members of the NUS, and I'm not sure whether they all pay the same $40,000 amount, but could you give me a brief outline on what that $40,000 could be spent on? Because that seems like a lot of money. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to be spent.
You are correct. It is a lot of money. No, so it's based on a proportion of, like it's like a dollar amount base. Oh, it's okay, Mitch. I'm happy to speak on this. But thank you. I welcome your willingness to lend a hand. The NUS affiliation amount is a dollar amount that is set by the National Executive of the NUS and is based per student or full-time equivalent student at the institution. So we will get an invoice from the NUS of quite a bit more than $40,000. And then there's a process of saying, this is how much we're willing to pay. There's then a fee waiver committee and then that goes through in that regard. But yeah, we'll get invoiced for more than $40,000. In terms of what the money gets spent on, It gets spent on a variety of things. About $200 of it comes back into the state branch coffers. So of the $40,000, we'll get about $200 back. You note that UWA and ECU are also contributing to here, possibly Murdoch if they decide to rejoin or re-affiliate. Then there's salaries. There's a paid employee of the NUS. There is also several paid office bearers of the NUS. So it pays their salaries. There's money in there for campaigns and things like that. Yeah. Essentially, it's not a dissimilar process to what we go through, but obviously it's a far smaller organisation than the Curtin Student Guild is. And part of the importance of these, predominantly the governance KPIs, is ensuring that that money is spent at least in accordance with the democratic will of the elected members and the elected delegates to the NUS as well, and that appropriate standards are upheld. But yeah, no, I do hear you. 40 grand is a lot of money. Ultimately, look, I mean, if we're being honest, the NUS will do a shocking job at governance this year again, and we'll end up deducting more. So this is a warning to them to do so better, and we'll reassess this again next year when it comes up for a vote. But yeah, in the middle of the year as well when it comes up for a vote. So there'll be another opportunity before we actually decide to spend that money for increased scrutiny at Representation Board and at Guild Council. And I'd certainly appreciate any members of Guild Council coming to me with any thoughts and opinions on how we ought to progress with the NUS. Ultimately, we'll see how it goes for the first few months and see if there's any marked improvement.
Just the minutes as well. Max rejoined the council at 6:47. I have no idea when you snuck out. You must have been very quiet, but 6:47 Max rejoins. Any further questions? We'll go Hamida and then we'll go to Ebony relating to this matter.
I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that how important NUS is because, well, it's a national union of students and unionism is important and it's not all about like, you know, if it meets KPIs or not. I think the way we assess it, you know, I do agree that NUS has problems.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, granted that last year we spent set $50,000 aside, and this time there'll be 40. That's a difference of $10,000. How does the guild plan on spending that extra money?
So there is $50,000 set aside in the Guild budget this year for affiliations to external bodies. The NUS is not the only body that we affiliate to. We also affiliate to the Council of Australian Postgraduate Associations, and we are also a member of Student Voice. No, not that one. It's the Student Experience Network. That's the one. Student Experience Network. So these are all institutions that charge us remarkably less than the NUS and arguably possibly do a little bit more when it comes to being bodies that pursue their aims. Student Experience Network is not aimed at being a political body. This is more for things like clubs governance and sort of that kind of stuff. It's staff to staff kind of network. So yeah, it'll be spent on those things. It can be spent on other things. Once we decide how much we're going to pay, we can have a conversation about pardon, about the reallocation of those funds here and what else that can be spent on, depending on how the other invoices lie and how much has been spent, and we can make a decision once we have the clarity on how much we're actually going to be paying the NUS come the middle of the year when we do approve the amount that we agreed to pay.
Thanks, Dylan. Any further questions relating to item 6.2? If not, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, raise hands. All those against? That motion is carried. Move on to item 6.3. Item 6.3 is dietary options in the GMART Lolly Wall. The motion is that the Guild Council recommends that the Curtin Student Guild expands the dietary options featured at the GMART Lolly Wall, say that 5 times fast, to contain a sufficient amount of halal and vegan options with a clear labelling of such and takes measures to prevent cross-contamination of tools such as tongs and scoops. That's moved by Razan and seconded by Jackie, who is absent. So we'll be chasing a seconder for that one. We'll go Max. Razan, as mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
This is an election promise I made and is one I'm bringing to Guild Council, as I know that there are students waiting on this. When I was first year, I discovered the Lolly Wall, which I loved. Back then, the ingredients I remember were written on each one, and I'd have to read through all of them to see which one didn't have gelatin and which one did. Otherwise, I'd go up to the counter and ask for the ingredients, which would mean that the staffer would have to go through the nutritional information to get that info. So by having halal and vegan options in the Lolly Wall, all students in this way can benefit from it, and having it clearly labelled would save time for staff as well. Vegan options means vegan, vegetarian, Hindu, Muslim and Jewish students, to name a few, can benefit from the wall. And halal options means Muslim students can also benefit if some of the vegan lollies have alcohol in it, for example. The motion benefits everyone, including the Guild commercially, as having more dietary options is a financial investment for us too. The third value of the Curtin Student Guild is diversity and standing for equity, equality and fairness. This is an easy fix at a minimal price, but will make a big difference for some students, as lollies are strongly tied to our welfare. And who doesn't want a chocolate after a horrible class?
Thank you, Razan. Max, presumably you want to talk about the benefits of having the Lolly Wall for the student experience here at Curtin University as seconder now?
Of course, yes. The Lolly Wall has sustained me through many, many late night study sessions, and the more people who can benefit from it, the better.
Thank you, Max. Were there any further questions or discussion relating to the motion? David?
I see that in the motion it says that to contain a sufficient amount. Is that a percentage amount of the lollies that are there, or is that a certain number? What is your plan for the word sufficient?
We currently have 40-ish lollies in that wall. So I'm hoping to be a bit realistic with how much we can probably include some replacing as well. I'm hoping that it's enough that we can get a percentage of the lollies being vegan or halal. But yeah, I do want to see what suppliers are currently being used and things like that. It just depends on these factors as well. But obviously not having 5 and then ticking the box, having an amount where students can actually benefit from it and see that this motion is actually bringing some sort of change.
Thanks, Razan. Any further? Yes, Max?
Just to raise on that, keep in mind that it's very likely that a portion of the wall already do fit these requirements, and it's just not labelled. So I imagine that would make sufficient amount quite a lot more achievable.
Thanks, Max. Any further questions or remarks on this motion? Mitch Craig.
Okay. I will note that last year, I believe it was, Vic Park health inspectors came in and told us we had to change the labelling on the Lolly Wall so that it does indicate some of the things you've mentioned in the motion. So I'm not sure how far that went and whether it includes whether it's halal or not, but I believe it had to state that it was vegetarian, whether it contained allergens, things like that. But on the wording of the motion, the Guild Council recommends that the Curtin Student Guild it's not like if you want this motion to actually be binding on the commercial team and the staff, it probably needs a little bit of a amendment. Because a recommendation to the Guild Council doesn't really recommend things to the Guild, it decides things for it. So
I'm happy to take amendments on the motion.
Mitch, do you have a suggestion? Seeing as you are
rewriting on the fly. So
on the fly.
The motion could simply read that the Guild Council expands the dietary options. You could also add at the end, in consultation with the Vice President of Sustainability and Welfare, so that it forces the commercial staff to consult with you on it as well. I believe amendments have to be circulated in writing. So do you want me to? So are you going to write it down? And
I've got it written down.
So all you'd need to do is delete the words recommends that the Curtin Student Guild. Well, actually, if you delete Guild Council recommends that so it just says that the Curtin Student Guild expands.
Yeah. Yeah, if I will be passing this on to Noor to help me with.
You can do it just by sending it to plain text.
Sure. Yes.
Can I suggest we go to a few other items and we circle back to this one?
Perfect. Or we can put it on the action list and make it a circular resolution for members to vote in their own time if members are amenable to that idea as well. Let's do that. Perfect. Okay, we'll move on. Item 6.4, I'll leave that with you, Noor, Razan and Mitch to sort out outside of this forum. Item 6.4 is the appointment of Mitchell Philip Craig as acting PSC president. The motion is that the Guild Council ratify the appointment of Mitch Craig as acting postgraduate student committee president commencing from the 6th of February 2025. That's moved by Dylan and seconded by Noor. Dylan, as mover, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to check with Mitch, is the wording of that one correct?
He's not allowed to speak to
you.
Yeah,
no. You can't.
He can't answer. This is
yeah.
Sorry, folks.
No worries. Anyway, I've authored a little poem for this one. Through the Guild's heart, his name resounds. In the PAV and the precinct, firmly found. A PhD mind, a guiding hand. For postgrads' needs, he'll take a stand. Secretary's chair, he's led there before. PSC's helm, twice, then more. His wisdom earned and duty set. As acting PSC president, he's the best bet.
Thanks, Dylan. I don't know how to summarise that in such few words. Eloquently put. Nor, as seconded to the motion, did you have anything to add? Hopefully less of a limerick. No, thank you. Were there any questions or comments relating to the appointment of Mitch? We'll go Ben.
I'm sure that Mitch's knowledge of the Guild, how the Guild works, will be, felt.
Oh, is that the door? I think that's Max because he didn't close the door. Mitch's impact will be felt. Whether it's positive or negative remains to be seen. Thankful I don't have to vote. Okay, were there any further questions relating to the motion as it stands or comments relating to Mitch's appointment? Max.
I would like to comment my distaste for poetry and end my statement there.
Thank you, Max. Noted for the minutes, please. Max is ardent against any sort of enjoyment. Any questions actually relating to the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favour of appointing Mitch again, as the PSC, the cockroach that he is, keeps coming back. Oh, that is not a reflection on the person, by the way. That's just a slip of the tongue. I apologise and withdraw. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. Okay, sweet. Let's move on. Item 7 is the minutes of committees reporting to the Guild Council. 7.1 is the representation board held on the 14th of November and the 2nd of December respectively. 7.2 is the executive committee held on the 29th of November, the 2nd of December, the 4th of December, the 23rd of December, the 14th of January this year, the 20th of January this year, the 5th of February this year, and the 11th of February this year. Item 7.3 is the Finance and Risk Committee held on the 5th of February this year. Item 7.4 is the Operations Committee held on the 10th of February this year. There was no meeting of the Legal Committee. The motion is that members approve those minutes on block. Can I get a mover? Yes.
Going through the Reps Board's minutes earlier, I did not see my name under the submitted section of the NUS reports, but it was in the transcript of the Reps Board meeting. So I'd just like that to be reflected, please, because I did in fact submit it and I do not want to pay the invoice. Thanks.
Callum, we already did pass those meeting minutes earlier in this meeting. We actually approved them, but that's okay. So maybe we'll make an amendment later. Yeah, sure. We can do that outside of this forum. Chasing a mover for that motion that doesn't exist in the copy that I have, but Dylan and a seconder. Razan, all those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. Item 8 is typically the most fun item at these meetings. It's general business. Was there anything to note for general business?
Instead of doing a circular, I just emailed everyone the amended.
Sweet. If everyone can check their emails for the approved motion relating to 6.3 and promptly send through votes, or we can discuss in person. We can circle back to that one and go to the vote then. For the time being, let's stay on general business. Was there any general business to raise? Let's go Dylan first.
Yeah, I've got 2 small items of general business. The first one is relating to, in my report, I indicated that the university had decided to cut $20,000 in funding for a club event grant that we'd been receiving every year since COVID started to die down and we were trying to bring life back on campus. Through the careful and diligent advocacy of the Curtin Student Guild, we've been able to get that funding reinstated this year, which I think is an incredible show of, we demonstrated the importance of that to the Vice-Chancellor, to the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic, and also raised it directly with the Academic Board, as it's important to student wellbeing and life here on campus to have a thriving clubs and societies, civil society here on campus. Where I welcome the news that that funding's been reviewed and is going to be in place for this year. The university communicated that with me today, and they've indicated that that funding won't be in place next year, but we've got it for this year. But that allows us to make the relevant submissions to the Student Services and Amenities Fees Advisory Committee to ensure that clubs continue to be funded in 2026 as well at the same level. But so yeah, this will mean that we don't need to make changes to our budget. We don't need to dig into our savings in order to fund clubs this year. That $20,000 is going to come through, which is very welcome. So I'd like to thank the university for that, the Chief Operating Officer's office, as well as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic and the Vice-Chancellor for agreeing to that. It's a welcome move, and I think it underpins how important clubs are here at the university. And it's also noted that it took just a little over a week for that funding to be reinstated. So there is a level of sway that we've got sometimes to get what we need for students. So I think it's a very good thing. I just wanted to shout that out and reflect that here to the council, just because it was noted in my report, but that has been resolved, which I think is very good and welcome news.
Thanks, Dylan. Any further general business, Roseanne?
I wanted to speak to something that I spoke at representation board as well. So at the representation board meeting, a motion was passed that read, condemns the refusal of the federal opposition leader Peter Dutton and state Liberal leader Debbie Bettham to stand in front of the Aboriginal flag if elected as Prime Minister or Premier respectively. Further to this, the representation board condemns the all major parties for not taking action necessary to adequately represent the views and aspirations of First Nations people and to close the gap. I moved the motion and explained that it very much spoke for itself alongside Dutton's track record when it comes to attitudes towards First Nations people, which also speaks for itself. I echoed the Human Rights Commissioner and First Nations leader Mick Gooder's words as behaviour that is divisive and an attempt to disappear Indigenous people from Australian politics. This motion is important to the Curtin Student Guild, as it's not unusual for such immature and racist behaviour to express itself in the behaviour of the general public, and if this reaches students or staff, it will be denounced as unacceptable. I did so at the representation board meeting, and I'll do it again. Internal condemnations, I'm really sorry, Coben, are never favourable but are necessary for the values of the guild. To repeat, the role of a guild councillor outlined is to set the objectives, values and direction of the guild. On January 20th, the Curtin Student Guild posted a statement on its social media channels headed, January 26th is not a day of celebration, in alignment with the circular resolution passed by absolute majority, endorsing the rally and the self-determination of First Nations people. Campus located on stolen land should be a safe space for First Nations people, and the Guild maintains this as an uncompromisable value. Guild councillor Coben Foster took the time, however, to mock the statement on social media, where it was publicly viewable, commenting underneath the guild post, beer's going to go down a tree. Student representatives at the Curtin Student Guild, regardless of political affiliation, in this case Foster's affiliation with the Liberal Party, should not override the duty of the Curtin Student Guild to its students, including First Nation students. As Vice President of Sustainability and Welfare, such behaviour does not contribute to a safe space, and I would request that Guild councillors act both professionally and considerately. That's
Thanks, Roseanne. Any further discussion or questions, queries or the like for general business? Dylan?
Yeah, just on Roseanne's point, I don't think the Liberal Party has any place in a student union, and it's quite appalling to see a member of this body stand and make a public comment that denigrates. So on this statement, it explicitly outlined the appalling conditions in the Banksia Hill Youth Detention Centre. Now, that's a failing of the Labor Party as much as it's a failing on the Liberal Party. But to have someone on there, a member of this council, sit there and write from their back porch or something that beers are going to go down a tree, I think it's incredibly appalling. It doesn't reflect the values of the Curtin Student Guild, and it's something that we need to call out in the strongest terms. I would urge Councillor Foster to reflect deeply on this, go and talk to some elders, engage with the community and get a bloody grip.
Thanks, Dylan. Any further questions, queries? David?
Just to go a bit further on that, I am in agreement that the comment is inappropriate, but I do believe that we need to be a bit careful when describing about members who are members of the Liberal Party, or particularly that group, that we can't be just basically saying that their views, simply because they're part of the Liberal Party, that it just doesn't have a place. I think that everyone who has a view has a right to their view. And while in this case it's inappropriate, I want to firstly emphasise that, but I do believe that if you want to be an open space, we need to be open to views on all sides of the political spectrum.
Thank you, David. We'll go back to Dylan. Yep.
I think Coben's certainly an elected member. It would be great to hear him talk at this meeting and possibly defend himself if he decides to do so. He's certainly welcome to do that. But I do think we've got a situation where the Liberal Party is just like opposed to student unions existing. At the UWA Open Day, they had bumper stickers they were giving out saying "Axe SAF," which is effectively axing student unions funding. So this is an it's a party that is going to be anti-student union if elected. So it's important to reflect that, as much as I reflect that, yes, Coburn's a member of this council and he has the right to be engaged with that. And I had him today for induction. We engaged in that conversation there. He's got an important role to play in the guild, but that also means reflecting yourself in a responsible way. But also, I think I wouldn't have mentioned Coburn's political affiliation if he make a bit of a fool of himself, I think, by making that comment either.
Thanks, Dylan. Any further questions from members? We'll go Callum, and if there's no further questions, we'll come over there.
I do have a comment. Senator George Brandis once said in the Senate, "President, everyone has a right to be a bigot." I don't think that's a sentiment that should be brought into this Guild Council.
Thanks, Callum. Any further questions or comments from members? Ella?
Yeah, I just think it's important that Razan and Dylan have condemned this appalling comment, to be honest, because like Aboriginal people face intense oppression in this country. Kids have died in Banksy Hill and Unit 18, because they are faced with torture. They are targeted by the police for being Aboriginal. There is an intense problem in this country of systemic racism towards Aboriginal people. And it's not just the Liberal Party, it's the Labor Party as well. Both major parties preside over a system of oppression and inequality rooted in colonisation, the history of this country, where people were genocided to establish capitalism in Australia. And the Liberal Party is the most biggest supporter of that, and I agree with Dylan, the most anti-union party that exists in Australia. And I think it's important that the Guild has condemned this comment from the legal counsellor. Guilds are meant to be spaces, as you said, of political debate and discussion, and that's why actually condemning what he said is an important position for the Guild to take, because I think the Curtin Student Guild, as most people in this body know, we support Aboriginal rights, and we don't think that this country should be celebrated on a day of colonisation. We don't think this country is one that actually represents all people, or that is a nice country. It's an appalling country, especially for Aboriginal people. And I think it's important the Guild has opposed Australia Day, opposed the celebration of it. And I think it's important that the Guild, opposes people who want to celebrate the torture of Aboriginal kids, to be quite frank. So I think I just wanted to say that, really. And I think Peter Dutton might win the election. And when he wins the election, it's going to be really horrible for Aboriginal people. Already we've seen all around the country harsher bail laws, harsher, more money into prisons and police, which will make life worse for Aboriginal people and entrench their economic poverty. So, I think it's important we come out in opposition to the Liberal Party and what they represent.
Ella, any further discussions or points? Coburn.
So I acknowledge everyone's comments that they've made about the statement that I made, and I do apologise if it came across as insensitive, and I can understand how that did come across as insensitive. It could have been worded very much better, but I thought it was important to show that there is a different view on the Guild, and that it is a more diverse Guild and a diverse uni, and it is a diverse country with different views. So, yeah.
Thanks, Coburn. Any further questions or comments? Go, Bridget.
Coburn, may I ask, how does cracking open a beer in regards to the appalling conditions of Aboriginal children in Banksy Hill reflect that there is a different perspective on the Guild?
Coburn.
So as I was saying, the comment could have been worded better. I was more referring to celebration of Australia and our diversity and who we are as a country. And yes, I wasn't referring to necessarily the treatment of Aboriginals. I was more referring to the celebration of who we are as a people and as a country and everything together.
Coburn, any further questions? We'll go David.
I just want to clarify that while I do believe that we should be open to all views, I do disagree with Coggan's explanation of his actions. I disagree with that.
Thanks, David. We'll go Callum and then we'll go Ella, provided that there's no other members' comments.
We are the Curtin Student Guild in name, but we are a student union in nature. Union comes from the word united. We should be united in views on this topic, especially considering what Ella said about the possibility of a Dutton government, which would absolutely destroy Indigenous rights and what little they have, which is very distressing. I think we really should reflect on how united we need to be on this front to advocate for Indigenous rights, especially considering the failed referendum, which reflects poorly on many people across the country. Having a different view that can be considered in any way anti what the Guild stands for is not why you became a councillor. You became a councillor. All of us became councillors and members of the Guild to fight for student rights, and that includes Indigenous rights. We have Indigenous students, and that goes into the broader community. So I think it needs to be remembered that as a student union, we should stay united on views.
Thanks, Callum. Ella.
Yeah, I just disagree with what Coben said. I think there's absolutely nothing to celebrate about this country. It's a country that's built on racism, built off genocide, built off colonisation. I think that's an important position. I think a lot of Aboriginal people are extremely opposed to celebrating Australia, and particularly when it's both the Labor and Liberal Party who are the parties who are putting more money in, as I said before, into oppressing and torturing Aboriginal children. And yeah, I just disagree with what he said. I think it's important to say that a country built off racism there's nothing to celebrate about that.
Thanks, Ella. Any further questions, comments, or anything relating to general business? If not, we'll take this opportunity to circle back to item 6.3. Again, our motion on dietary options in the GMART lolly wall. I have the updated motion in front of me, so we can quickly pass a vote here. It'll save a circular resolution and everyone having to open an email and then respond to me and Nor. The amended motion is as follows: that the Guild Council expands the dietary options featured at the GMART lolly wall to contain a sufficient amount of halal and vegan options with clear labelling of such, and takes measures to prevent cross-contamination of tools such as tongs and scoops in collaboration with the Vice President of Sustainability and Welfare. That's moved by Razan. I'm assuming, Max, you're happy to second it in the absence of Jackie. Perfect. We've already discussed this, so I'm happy to move to a vote unless anyone wants to discuss it further. Bridget?
Razan, are there any lollies that you are personally excited for the new lolly wall?
All of them, all 40 of them. Those little straws that are like random.
Okay, I might ask, given this is taking a bit of time to get through the Guild Council, I might ask that this incredibly important discussion nonetheless gets taken offline into another forum other than this. Yeah, just depose of me as chair. Come on, take me out. Take me out. Motion of no confidence, me guys. Do it. Go on, do it. Yeah, let's save that for another time. Hey guys. Okay, fantastic. We'll move to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried. Item 9 is the meeting evaluation, and you're all in for a treat because everyone's favourite enthusiastic 35-year-old car battery, Mitch Craig. He's got all the juice, all the energy of a 35-year-old car battery is what I was going to say. Yep. That's not a reflection on the
I move the councillor no longer be heard.
The motion is that Mitch Craig be no further heard. I'm presuming that you are moving. I'm chasing a seconder. Thank you. Thank you. That motion has lapsed. Mitch Craig, please continue with the meeting evaluation.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Except, yeah. So, I mean, I just want to start off by saying that it's weird that I'm still here, and that's the thing. I do want to note, before I get into the meeting evaluation, that if anyone's interested, the final minutes of last year's exec are in the agenda pack tonight, and there's some wheel at the end of each year, the exec gives some reflections on how the year went, and there's some interesting stuff in here, very unfiltered. So yeah, worth a read. But anyway, I'll get into this. So in terms of alignment of the agenda and discussion with the strategy map and strategic plan frameworks, it was a really great report and update from President Storer, covering benefits to students, the commercial portfolio, advocacy, and other important issues. The committee papers were very informative and appropriate. The strengths of the meeting: there's excellent discourse on items ensuring the Guild is operating effectively and performing its functions. Suggestions for improvement: the agenda could have been provided earlier. Values moments: the success in getting the club grant from the uni and the poem Dylan wrote for me. That is all.
Just actually going to close this meeting. Sorry. Okay. Item 10. Thank you, Mitch. Engaging. Item 10 is the next meeting. The next meeting of the Ordinary Guild Council. This the 56th. Wow, I'm a year in advance. 56th Guild Council will be held at 6 p.m. on the 20th of March 2025 to be held at Council Chambers. All reports and documentation sent through a week earlier. With that, I'd like to close the meeting at 7:22 p.m. And wish you all a good night and a good sleep. I'm sure you'll have no troubles given Mitch Craig's discourse tonight.